started our other session, we're going to imagine a funnel. We're going to start really broad and work ourselves more narrow. So we're going to begin with this question. Could I or should I live stream my services? Okay? Just by kind of pulsing the room, how many of you currently live stream your services with some regularity? Okay? So we got one church, two church, right? How many of you are considering whether or not you would want to live stream your service? Two church. How many of you have really no interest in live streaming your service? Two. Okay? Thus, why I asked the question, could you or should you? So for all of you, regardless of whether or not you're doing it, I'm going to ask you this question. Why in the world would you live stream a worship service?
Shut-ins.
Okay? Shut-ins, what?
Engagement.
Engagement. Okay? Now, here's why I asked that question. If you can't give a real good answer to why, you probably don't need to be live streaming your services. Okay? There's a lot of weight to this. Remember a minute ago when we started talking about social media, and I gave you this, do I retreat, do I immerse, do I engage? Okay? I am not in any way implying that some of us in this room have done this. I can guarantee you that there are churches that have, but not necessarily you. So please listen, don't react to this. Some churches live stream video because North Point does it. All right? Or because fill in the blank church down the road does it. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Because, let's forget technology for just a second. There is a huge theological and ecclesiological question that you need to wrestle with before you jump into live streaming your service. Okay? And there is not a right or wrong answer here. But I hope that you feel some tension. And that tension is really good for you to wrestle with. Okay? Obviously, from a theological position, we should all answer the same questions because we are Baptists who all are part of believing the Baptist faith and message. Who is God? Who is Jesus? How does someone come to a relationship with God? Who is the Holy Spirit? What is the Bible? Is it reliable? What is the church? Okay? Theology, we should all be pretty consistent on. Ecclesiology, or study of the church, we may vary. Okay? As we debate and discuss this, for example, and I don't want to turn this into a debate. So this is a rhetorical question. But if we went around the room and I asked you, who is your 11 o'clock service on Sunday morning for? We would probably have different answers to the question. Some would say it is for the people of God in this local church to gather together. Some would say it's to evangelize and reach out beyond our walls and invite people to come in. Do you, just between those two answers, can you see how I could reach a different conclusion on whether or not I should live stream?
Sure.
Okay? So, before we get into the technicalities of how you do it, we really need you to pause, even take some step back, and say, should we be doing this? Just because we can doesn't mean we should. Okay? You follow that? So, dependent on the mission of your church, the outreach of your church, and the objective of the intentionality of your 11 o'clock service. That should determine whether or not you live stream. Okay? That should also determine a lot of other things you do. Do we use a projector or do we use a hymnal? Do we use a band? Do we do modern worship? Do we do all hymns? Do we have children's ministry? Do we have youth ministry? All those things that you could do. Should you do them? You need to wrestle with that. Okay? Tension is really healthy, and sometimes you need to create tension on purpose by always being willing and able to answer this question: why are we doing this? Okay? Why do I want to have a Facebook page for my church? Why do I want to have social media at all? Why do I want to have a website? Why in the world would I want to live stream? Why do we have youth ministry? Why do we sing on Sunday morning? Why do we take an offering? Why do we give admissions? Why do we use the version of the Bible that we use? Why do we encourage a certain dress in our church? Why? You have to live in that tension. You need to be able to answer that question. Because here's why. If you can answer those questions, that means your church has talked together and you have come to some decisions together on how you are going to be intentional. Let me give you a case in point. I'm not trying to brag. I'm just going to use our church as an example. Okay? Alan Smith. Who is Calvary Baptist Church trying to reach?
The young church man in Columbus, Georgia.
Boom. That is our target. Does it mean we don't want unsaved women to come to our church? Absolutely not. Does it mean we don't want to reach kids? Absolutely not. But you'll notice those personas I read for you earlier. Every one of them were men. Because we as a church, we have wrestled through and we have decided we're going to intentionally target the unchurched man. It doesn't belittle or minimize women, but we know if we get the man, we get the whole family. Does that make sense? Okay. That is just an example. Don't be Calvary. You be you. But you as a church have to wrestle and be prepared to answer why. Yes, sir.
The tool, mission, insight that every church can get access to through the Georgia Baptist Mission Board is real good about telling you what culture group is around your church.
Absolutely.
And you target that culture group.
Absolutely.
If your culture group is a bunch of rednecks, you have a barbecue. If you've got a bunch of yuppies, you do some kind of yuppie event.
Right. Right.
Whatever that is.
Well, and I would
Whatever
say,
it is,
and I promise you, I'm steering this conversation to live stream, okay? But you brought this up. You are absolutely right in being intentional. But you also need to be aware of and Wayne can help you with this, the demographic trends and projections of how Coweta County and surrounding counties are projected to be in 10 years. Dramatic, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people are projected to live in your county in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
So you need to be reaching the people now, but you need to be preparing for the people that are coming. Okay? Yes, sir.
So it might be better just to have a CD of the choir or DVD of the choir and give it to people that want them, even though most of your computers don't use DVDs anymore. Or to put it out there in your group, rather than putting it out there for the whole world to see.
Again.
I mean, you're being nice. You're
I'm
sitting
not-
there being really nice.
No, I'm not. No. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
I'm saying it.
Okay? And that,
I'm saying it. Just because you think it's cool does not mean everybody else is gonna think it's cool.
well, Wayne, here's the point.
I'm German, I'm blunt.
No, I'm not trying to be avoiding an issue here at all. Okay? We're going to talk about live streaming and how you can do it. I'm going to promote you to do it. Okay? My point is this.
Yeah.
Don't just do it because the church down the street is doing it.
Amen.
Just because it fits their mission and objective doesn't mean it fits your mission and objective. It is an extremely powerful tool to advance the gospel. And it does very, very good things. But don't start it until you can answer the why. Okay? That's my point.
Be intentional.
Be intentional. Absolutely. Now, finally, I'm up and running.
Yay.
But we had already started, okay? Could I or should I? So being able to answer is, what's the purpose or the reason? And then being able to go a step further and say, how will my church minister and serve the people in this online community? Because here's the deal. Any content from your church that you choose to push out through the web or the internet, you need to be prepared to engage those people. Before we even get into live stream, let's say, well, we don't live stream, but we record the pastor's sermon and we, bless you, we post it on a podcast or we post the MP3. Well, some joker in Texas may access that, read it, be encouraged with it, and contact your church. How are you going to serve that guy? How are you going to love him? How are you going to disciple him? How are you going to help him get connected to another church? Okay? Let's just go way back to the 70s for a minute. Okay? When you passed out tracts all the time. Right? And on the back of that tract was always your church's name, address, and phone number. Why? So that when that thing got passed around 86 times, and if you've been in church a long time, you can tell stories about how somebody in another state across the country got your church's phone number because they picked this tract up. Okay? Well, how are you going to respond to that? What we're doing now is very similar. We're just using a digital platform to release that content. Okay? So, how will your church minister and serve? There are so many extremes to this. Some, it's just to the simple extreme of, we've got a team of people, we give them permission to engage and reply to comments. To another extreme of churches that have an online pastor on their staff. And their whole job, that is their congregation of people that they serve, are the people that are engaged with him in their, they literally would say, we have 2 campuses. We have a campus located here at the address, and we have an online campus. And we're staffed for both. Okay? Again, multiple extremes here, but you have to, it all has to fit with the intentionality and the why that you're doing. Does that make sense? Okay. I'm not gonna suggest for you what's right or wrong, because there is not a right or wrong answer. There is not a right or wrong answer in terms of ecclesiology with that. Okay, as long as the theology is solid and that God's people are being edified and the gospel is being advanced and God's word is being handled and rightly divided as the word of truth, and the Spirit of God is given allowed freedom to change hearts, and we are there to love and live in community with each other. That's a theological root that must exist. I can do that face to face. I can do that over the phone. I can do that online. Okay? So as long as I can answer why, there's not a right or wrong. What fits our mission and our mandate, and the people of God in this local community are bought into it, then we got to position ourselves to serve. Now we're going to get into tighter in the funnel on some hardware, software stuff, but before we do that, any comments or questions about what I've ranted on for a few minutes? Adam.
One thought or sort of question on engagement is you also have to be prepared, and maybe how do you prepare for pastor says something, somebody just takes a 30-second sound bite out of the middle of it,
Yep.
posts it themselves as a rant, making the church look bad. How do you handle that?
Right. Well, and this would go to the same comment that Janice asked earlier about something goes viral. I don't mean to go viral. Okay? I got to trust that the church has enough confidence that this pastor is speaking the truth. And if he's speaking the truth, man, we know that Scripture can be taken out of context all the time. Judas hung himself. Go and do likewise. I'm taking 2 verses, totally unrelated, put them together and speak a truth that's not true. Okay? But if we as a people are we're committed to this purpose, and we as a people have chosen to have this route, we understand the risk involved. Okay? The same risk exists as if you're already posting that MP3 online. The same risk exists if you have a web page or you have a social media account. The risk is already there. Okay? So if the congregation has committed to go this way, then they're going to be ready to defend it, with the truth. And whether that's responding to that person directly, a press release, hey, let's go out there. Hey, there's been some situations. Let's get out in front of you with accurate information. Make sense?
I was at a church, used to be at a church that was on television. There was a sermon prep team, sermon outlines were reviewed, all that kind of thing to make sure something wasn't said in the 30 minutes of the sermon time that would get us protested, get us sued, or something of the like. And that was before social media.
Sure. And some communicators, pastors, etc., are intentionally blunt, and that's a technique that they use to communicate. And if I know my pastor is that way, and we've decided that we know that, but we still want to go online because we see a good value in the why, we can go after it. I mean, you may increase your chances of some of those comments, but you've decided as a community that's where you're going to go, and you'll just deal with it. Wayne.
You may have already mentioned this, I wasn't here to hold on. Everybody's got a cell phone. Everybody can live stream with Facebook or whatever while you're preaching. I mean, I see them all the time online. Oh, look here, we're live here. Here's a guy preaching right here. I mean, do you suggest telling people or making some kind of policy in the church, please don't live stream the service? It's like telling them.
I think that's a great question.
I mean, they're doing it.
Right, and that becomes their personal property. Your church, because this is a whole rabbit hole I'm not going to chase, okay? But the moment you have ever done anything at your church that you invited people to, which I hope all of us have done something in our church we've invited people to. The first time you did that, from that point forevermore, you became a public place. You are open to the public.
They can film anything.
And if I'm coming into a public place, you can't tell me I can't record that. It's my device. I'm in a public place. I'll record it. So it's not a ticketed
If
event.
you're ashamed, do it.
That's right. So, I mean, common sense and good judgment.
Right.
And again, the same thing we go back to what we said a minute ago. Forget technology. Don't ever say anything that you wouldn't be embarrassed for somebody to repeat.
That's right.
That's just, you learned that in kindergarten, right? All right. So, that being said, let's move
I
to
learned that in kindergarten, not to learn how to do that's a little more difficult.
Right. Receiving information and applying information are two different things.
Right.
All right, so let's assume for the rest of this time, your church has discussed it. We've lived in the tension. We've wrestled with the ecclesiology. We have made the decision. It fits our mission to stream live. Okay? Now let me talk to you some how-tos. What are some things that you need? And the good thing is, there are 1,000 different ways to skin this cat. Okay? I'm going to recommend some hardware tips and some software tips. You're going to need a little bit of both to do this. Okay? So let's go through, first of all, some of the hardware. We're going to start on the easy and work our way up in terms of complexity. Okay? The first one is, as Wayne just said, I have a phone. I have in my hand a very high quality camera that shoots. I have the iPhone 10. So in my hand I have a high quality camera, records 4K 60 frames per second video. That is exceptional quality video right here in my hand. Okay? So what are the pros of this? Pretty easy to use, right? I download an app, I press a button, I hold it up, I'm streaming live. It's easy to use. And relatively speaking, is low cost. Because the church generally just said, hey, can we use your phone? Sure. The church hadn't spent any money. Okay? So that's an easy way to do it. What are the cons of it? my quality on this, while this is a good camera, is gonna be limited, okay? Because even if the shakiness, I could buy a tripod and put it on it, but I can't zoom very well without it getting really grainy. I'm kinda stuck with just one shot.
Right.
Most of the people that do this, they're gonna put it in the back of the room. I'm gonna get this, wow, this is fun. I can see Sister Schubert scratching her head, you know? I don't know why I said Sister Schubert, maybe because I needed a chicken mini this morning, but anyway. But you get the idea. Okay, so this is a hardware tool. Another con to this is quality of the audio. There are adapters that I can use, there are plugins that I can add on, but generally speaking, if I just put this in the room and allow this microphone to do it, I'm getting all of the ambient noise in the room, okay? Will this work? Absolutely. Is it cost effective? Most definitely. Easy? Most definitely. Not the best quality. Depends on my objective. Hardware number one. Hardware number two, I present to you Exhibit B in the center of the room, which is a Mevo. Incredible tool, okay? That's about a $300 piece of equipment right there. It shoots in 4K video. It's Wi-Fi enabled. So it is right now connected to the internet, and it is streaming live to whatever account that is attached to. I could do it to YouTube Live, Facebook Live, live stream, whatever software portal I want to use, I can send that out to, okay? What makes that more cool is Mr. Smith back there has an iPad with a control system on it, okay? And that thing has motion tracking. So if I sit down, he can focus on my face. It can tight zoom on my face because it's 4K, and it can move with me. That's pretty cool, okay? Or, and let's say if I'm interviewing a pastor, and that one camera can become a 6-camera setup, and he'd probably show it to you over lunch, you can see how it works. I've got this huge, wide 4K shot, but I'm gonna make this corner right where my body is right now be camera 1. The width of this square be camera 2, and the person sitting on the stool over there be camera 3, and he could tap back and forth, and it will crop that 4K image in 720. If I'm talking too nerdy, just tell me to stop. It'll crop that image and make it look like this one camera is actually 3 to 4 cameras, which from the viewer, that's more interesting to watch, isn't it? Okay, so what are the pros of that? Really easy to use. I put the camera up, I connect it to the internet, I put a kid in the back on an iPad and say, have at it. And they are live editing with what appears to be a 4 to 5 camera setup in the room, and it is streaming live, okay? What are the cons of that? Well, it does have some cons. I don't have, in video world, we would call this post-production. That's just out there. I mean, I don't really have any ability if I want to go in and add a verse or a title, or it's just there, okay? And again, you'll notice the audio of that is the microphone built into that room, okay? So if you talk, it's going to obviously pick you up better than me. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So just know I've got some limitations there, but I may be willing to sacrifice some of that for cost, ease of use, and making, I have dramatically increased my production quality there from here. And I haven't spent but $300. Does it make sense? Okay, that's option 2.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
I've read a little bit about the Mevo, and I was thinking there was a way to hook it up sound-wise.
There
to
is an
the
audio
soundboard or
input.
something, or-
There is a 1/8 audio input.
Okay.
Yes, I could. If I wanted to come off the soundboard and run into that, I could do that.
Do it as like a headphone in?
That's correct.
Okay.
I could do that. That in and of itself, there's some sound limitations from that. I gotta make sure, again, I can get nerdy real fast, I confess that. So if y'all say like, dude, you're talking Japanese, just tell me, I'll try to explain it a different way. But even if I did that, I gotta really pay close attention to how much level I'm pushing off of that board, because that little adapter can only handle so much.
What's the
Okay?
range of that?
range of cost or,
Distance.
wherever the Wi-Fi is?
No, I mean the video quality, how.
Oh, I mean, it's gonna capture 4K, so, he and I played with that a little bit here. It was able, I mean, sitting right here, this close, it got probably the width of the screen would be, that close to it. We moved it further back, cause I wanted the freedom to be able to move this far out and still be in the shot, okay?
Zoom with that?
You can't zoom, but what I can do is take this 4K image, which is a really big video file, okay? And I can select a section of the screen. Well, that section of that screen, as soon as I start doing that, it's basically, oh, now we're gonna do a 720p image of this, that, and the other. Does that make sense? Okay, so I've got some converting happening in that little machine. If I was in the back of the room, bottom line, if I had it in the back of the room, I'm not gonna be able to get a tight shot on my face that's clear. But I could have it in the back of the room and get the whole stage and get a reasonable body shot that'll be relatively clear. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
I know you're talking about live streaming, but is that something that you could also record with?
This is built to be a live stream
Okay.
device first.
Okay.
I could, depending on the software I'm using on the back end that's connecting to that, could record it.
Okay.
Yes.
It does have an SD card built into it. I'm actually recording, not live streaming right now.
Didn't even know that. See? Look at that. Thank you for telling me. I could have said whatever I wanted to say. The world wouldn't know. All right. Now, we're going to kick up the notch in terms of professionalism. Okay? Something like, there are tons of brands. This is a brand, a Teradek. My price point just went up. Okay? This is a simple, it's about this size right here. This is not a big device. Think of this as a streaming interface. So, if my church has or is choosing to invest in a camera system, I've got cameras, I've got a video mixer, and we're mixing our feeds, all that kind of stuff. And that camera feed is going into a Teradek. This Teradek is handling that conversion rate of the data, compressing it, and sending it out to whatever internet software service I'm choosing to use. Make sense? So, case in point, Superwell, pretty big event that we do, right? Georgia Baptist. This is what our production company uses at Superwell. We've got a 6-camera video set up. We're doing graphic overlays and lower thirds, and everything's in HD, and all that video production that's happening live is ultimately funneling down one little pipe, going into that Teradek, and out to the world.
That's nothing. I was just talking about Facebook, it goes to 720,
That's right, it's gonna downgrade it, but that's okay. So, I get a lot of high professional opportunity with this. It's pretty easy to use. It's gonna require existing equipment. There is no camera on this. This is simply an interface. This is making the assumption, I've already got all of my cameras set up how I want them. This can be as high speed as a camcorder, and as low speed as a camcorder, or as high speed as professional broadcast quality cameras that are going through a digital console, and I'm mixing them like crazy, and everybody's got their headsets on. Okay, live camera 1. Okay, camera 3. All right, time on camera 1. All that kind of stuff. Okay, the Teradek is the interface that communicates that up. Make sense? Okay. One of my favorite toys that I got to play with recently is the Sling Studio. You guys familiar with Sling TV or the Sling Box? You heard about that? This is kind of a branch component of what they have, and this is pretty stinking cool. So, the Sling Studio, again, a little bit more pricey. It's about the size of a modem that you would have at your house, like a cable modem. It's about that big. It has a hard drive installed in it, which is kind of slick. And it has the ability for me to input 2 types of cameras. I could have that camcorder or that broadcast quality camera that's hardwired into it, or an iPhone, or a Bluetooth camera. For example, if I had the Sling Studio app, installed on my phone. I could have, for example, we use this in a setup where we had 3 broadcast cameras plugged into the Sling Studio and 3 iPhones or iPods, like just on a stand. You can buy a little tripod stand for these little things, and just sitting around the stage. And that system treats it just like another camera. Camera 1, camera 2, camera 3, camera 4, and whatever it is, it's capturing that and funneling it through. So if I wanted to go to a multi-camera system without spending thousands and thousands of dollars on a broadcast system, Sling Studio would do that for me. I could easily buy a Sling Studio, 4 Gen 4 iPods for $199 each that record 720 HD. Put that up, connect those 4 iPods to this, and I got a 4-camera setup that works much similar to that iPad. I'm just clicking what camera I want, and whatever camera I select live, it's feeding, this is where it gets really cool, simultaneously, it's feeding to whatever web service I'm streaming live to, it's recording it on that hard drive, and it's doing an isolated recording of each camera. And it's also building on the fly a Final Cut or a Premiere Pro timeline that I can then take that, I'm getting dirty, I'm sorry. I can take that hard drive, hook it into my computer, and now I can do post-production. Cut, drop overlays, and I'm done.
That's awesome.
Isn't that crazy? It's a really, really cool device. So again, there's a higher price point, but my abilities that I can do are much, much greater. Does it make sense? None of these are going into like, hey, let's do TV quality broadcasting. Okay? I'm assuming if you're new to TV quality broadcasting, you're probably not at this conference. Okay? Adam.
So I'm maybe a little less nerdy, so simplify it for me, but during the live stream phase, I go camera 1, camera 3, camera 2, and I'm flipping back and forth or whatever. But then you're saying it's recording all 4, so then after the fact, me and several people can sit down and go, well, instead of going camera 1, camera 3, camera 2, it'd really look better to just stick with camera 1, then go to camera 2.
That's exactly what I'm
And so
saying.
you can rearrange your non-live so it doesn't match
Yes.
your live.
That's correct. You can rearrange it in post-production,
Okay.
and or you can add other components. I've got a maybe post live. I've got the PowerPoint presentation saved as images, and I've got those in there as well. So when the pastor reads that verse, I'm going to drop that graphic of that verse, so then it sees.
So his audio continues, but you basically
Yeah,
override the video.
if I'm
with
using a
JPEG.
non-linear video editing software, yes, my audio keeps running, and I can drag any video on that I want. Pretty slick. So, there's 2 sides to this coin. Assuming we've answered our why, I've got a hardware question and I got a software question. Within the hardware category where we're talking, you can see this range. Okay, really easy, very inexpensive, to pretty complex, lots of options, cost involved. Okay, so we got a hardware. Now, all of these are useless if there isn't a software side. The software is basically the translating language that says, I'm taking all of this video content that you're giving me, and now I'm going to communicate that in a language that the internet can read. Okay? So, when we start talking software, one thing I need to do quickly is I need to evaluate what is my internet speed in my church. Okay? A great little tool, if you go to your church, go to a website called speedtest.net, or there are other rate tools that you can use, and do a speed test. if you are not at least getting 2 megabits minimum, it is just, don't even try it. It's not gonna work.
56K.
Okay? If you got a 56K dial-up modem, this is not a conversation for you. Okay? I would also say, 2 megabits is a minimum, but if I'm wanting to shoot 4K video and I've got 2 megabits, it's just not gonna work. Don't do it. If I'm willing to downgrade my quality to 720p or lower, and I've got a slower internet feed, we may talk then. Okay? So you need to figure out, hey, we've decided we want to do this. We're really, we know the why, we know our intention, we're ready to do this, the whole church is on board, we've bought the equipment. Oh, satellite internet's our only option way out here in the country. This is not gonna work. It's just not gonna work, okay? Your upload speed is really important, okay? Notice, we're not talking download, we're talking upload.
Right.
Okay, so you could be getting, it is very possible for you to get 30 megabits down and half of one up. So what's your upload speed? That's what you need to watch. So if you do a speed test, it's gonna first test your download speed. It'll be like a throttle, and then it's gonna go to 0, and then it's gonna test your upload speed. It'll go, it's just not as fast. Okay? Any questions on that? You might want to just check that out. So let's assume we've understood the why. We've figured out our hardware option. We know that we have access to the internet and we're willing to pay for it. Then we're going to look at software options. Kind of the same category of progression we talked about earlier. One option would be YouTube Live. Man, here's the beauty of YouTube. It's free. Another beauty of YouTube. It is the second largest search engine that there is. What's the first one? Google. Okay? More people consume video content on YouTube than, I don't know that this stat's true, I would argue, than on TV these days. Do you know what the demographic of the heaviest user of YouTube is?
5 years old.
You know?
9-year-old watching Minecraft.
No. Believe it or not, it's a young to middle-aged male. Heaviest users of YouTube. Now, you talk to your Gen Zers. Hey guys, how often do you watch YouTube? Thank you very much. All the time. These guys watch YouTube more than any other video source. Okay, am I right? All right. So, it's a powerful tool. So, think about it. Just think about it this way. If you've chosen to go this way from a missional standpoint, it would make sense that I put it where more people are searching for content. That makes sense, okay? That's a way, really easy to use. It's kind of self-explanatory. We talked about this one earlier, Facebook Live. Now let's just debate back and forth for fun. What would be the logic of me choosing YouTube Live versus Facebook Live?
Demographics.
Demographics, huge. What else?
I don't know how instant YouTube pushes out live feeds as much as Facebook does. Cause like, I don't see on my YouTube when people go live as much as I see on
Correct.
Facebook. Like Facebook will like send me a notification and
Right.
try to like, they'll email me and call me and
Correct.
talk to me live and say, hey, you know, your friend is
Yeah.
going live. But
Exactly.
on YouTube,
Doesn't
they're
happen.
not really concerned as much as about like having content that's up there for a long period of time.
That's
and
correct.
trying to get ads on it.
That's correct. So, remember, social media, we talked about this earlier, it's all about engagement. So this goes back to you answering the whys. I would argue, if I'm wanting to create video content that I'm gonna sit out there, and I want people to go find it, YouTube is my answer. If I'm wanting to create video content that connects to my social network that I'm gonna engage with and get instant feedback on, Facebook's your answer. There's a difference, okay? You could use both depending on your hardware. For example, this little tool here, now that we know it also records an SD card, I can stream that content live via Facebook, be engaging, and then after the fact, take that SD card, put it in my computer, upload it on my YouTube channel to sit there. I've got the same content, let's use it twice. Okay? Great. Periscope Live, man, Periscope is the reason why we have Facebook Live. Periscope's owned by Twitter. It was a standalone app initially, blew up. It was like crazy. I'm on Periscope, everybody. This is great. It was like its own platform. Twitter bought it. Facebook saw how big it got. Then they started Facebook Live and just totally destroyed Periscope. Okay? But depending on your demographic, if the congregation in your church are heavy Twitter users, we said this earlier, go where they're living.
That's right.
Okay? So if they're living in Twitter, Periscope may be better for you. And that's okay. Because people have different opinions here, okay? Again, this goes back to an ecclesiology question. I'm going to interject my opinion. Okay? Likes attract likes. So, if your church is naturally reaching a demographic of people, maybe they're young professionals and they're heavy users on LinkedIn and Twitter, great. It would be foolish of me not to engage where they're living for the sake, I realize God's sending these people, but we really need that 27-year-old gamer on YouTube. They're really going for him. When God's like, I'm already sending you these people. And there's a lot of young professionals who need Jesus. So, go where they're living. This is just another option. The next one, again, we just ratcheted ourselves up in terms of we went from free to pay, and we went from social to just like solid pro grade content. It would be something like live stream. Like in everything, you've got some free features, but largely this is a paid thing. This is going to do two things for you. It really does a great job of manipulating your data. It's kind of like Netflix. If you stream Netflix, Netflix is smart enough to throttle the quality based upon your internet speed. Right? So you get good, stable stream and not buffering. Facebook doesn't necessarily do that. Facebook's just like, here it is, and everybody's jumping. Live stream, again, more pro-grade tool. It's got more about auto-conversion and buffering in it, okay? And it's going to keep you a more steady stream flowing, and it will also adjust its download rate to the people that are watching. Make sense? So, like for example, SuperWow.com, SuperWow this summer, this is how we stream. Coming off of the broadcast cameras, on the teledoc, we're sending this out through live stream, and then it's got embed code into your website. So I can go on my website, and now it's all embedded in there, and it's branded so that it looks all pretty and all that kind of stuff. Okay? Does it make sense? So, I've had some experience with the live stream. It's been really favorable. It's extremely good. It is not cheap, but it's very, very pro grade. I go back to the SuperWow. We're kind of wrestling internally. Do we keep doing this? We're kind of leaning now back more toward the Facebook thing, just for that engagement standpoint. And it's a lot easier then to say, hey, Mom, I want to see your kid at camp. Go check it out here. So, anyway.
That's a good idea.
So we've given you some big question why. Here's some hardware thoughts. Here's some software thoughts. Now let me run you through some final thoughts. In summary, we've said this more than we've said anything else. Know the why. Be able to answer the why. And if you can't answer the why, stop doing it. I would also say it is not a bad idea if you have a team of people in your church that are helping you do this. Have a process of regular review. Hey guys, is this is this meeting our goal? Are we hitting the target here? Or, hey guys, social media algorithms just changed, or this new piece of technology just came in. Constantly reviewing to not only be able to review why, but are we doing this the best way? Can we do it better? Case in point of why this is important. I'm going to use our Super Wow example. Okay, we started streaming our Super Wow camps before Facebook Live ever was there. So when we started it, the only way to do it was to pay for it. Well, if there wasn't a review process in place, we may not have had the way to say, wait a minute, we can do this same thing for free. What do we want to do? Okay, so that's healthy in anything. Constantly evaluate. Can we do this different? Can we do this better? Are there other resources available that we have now that we didn't have a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? And I would argue a lot of churches are dying today because they don't have a review process in place and they're still doing it the way they did it 30 years ago rather than reevaluating. Anyway, I'll not get on that soapbox either. Can we edit that out later? All right, second thing, have a plan to minister to the people online. This is repetitive. We already said this. I'm reinforcing it because it's important. Okay? I would say this. For example, this just hit me, Adam. I've never thought about this until this moment. We have training. We're good at writing programs. Jesus' church and the Baptist church especially. We have training on teaching you how to share Jesus with a friend through a gospel conversation. I have never seen a training that teaches somebody how to engage a gospel conversation online. I've never seen that. Maybe that's something we need to do. Here's the third thing. Don't start it if you can't sustain it and you can't staff it.
Wow, that is gigantic.
If you can't sustain it, don't start it. What does sustain it mean?
Keep it
Well, do we have this in the budget? Is this built around one person who may get sick, die, get mad, and leave?
going. Yeah.
Okay? Is there a team of people in place to help make sure this runs?
That's right.
Can't sustain it.
Okay? So, this is huge. This is a leadership mantra I try to live with all the time because it applies to really everything you do.
That's right.
Yeah,
You will have heartburn or a good idea. Sometimes it's kind of hard to tell between the two.
yeah, no kidding.
So when those ideas come in your mind, you have to answer this question. Can I sustain it? Can I staff it? Okay?
Dang, that's worth coming today to hear this. I'm 66 years old. And I'm gonna tell you something right now, okay? That statement right there is huge. That's across the board in your churches. I mean, that's not just this. Excuse me for preaching. That's everything you do.
Amen.
Right.
You add all the way, because we're program oriented.
That's right.
You gotta be purpose driven. And purpose driven will cause you to not be program driven.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and to that end, the last one, honestly, I would argue should be at the first, all the way through, and the last.
Amen.
Communicate with your church. Your church needs to be involved in the discussion as to why are we doing this. You know why? If 2 or 3 people get in a room and come up with a good idea, and they decide to do this, and the church doesn't buy into it, guess what's going to happen when you write your budget? It's not going to get in there. Now I just created a sustainability problem. Now I've created tension in the church. Now we're arguing over whether or not we should use this as a tool to reach people for the gospel. And everybody in the room would be in favor of reaching people with the gospel. But because they were engaged after the fact, and I don't know about this, it's natural to say, whoa, what are we talking about? Does it make sense? Now, every one of you have different church structures. Every one of you have different church polity. So I'm not necessarily saying this requires a church conference that someone, I make a motion that we stream live. It may. You know your church, I don't. I'm just simply saying, however your church works and functions and is structured, whatever mechanism, just, there's a vision casting that needs to take place way back at the conversation level of why. Hey guys, there's an opportunity that we have to reach people that our church is not reaching. If you'd love to be a part of that conversation, why don't you join us X and Y and Z at this place, and we're going to talk about whether or not we should consider live streaming. Have that conversation with whoever wants to be there. You may be surprised who comes. Okay? Have the conversation. Don't be offended that there's tension. Don't get your feelings hurt if somebody comes to that conversation and says, this is a bad idea. Okay, you need to lean into that. Okay, can you help me understand why you think this is bad? Because they may bring something to the table that you haven't thought of. So don't be offended if everybody falls lockstep and barrel with every good idea you have. You're not raising leaders. Okay? Tension is healthy. It's good. Pushback is good, as long as it's done in love and with respect.
That's right.
Helps sharpen us to make us better. I'm sorry, I'm talking more about church life and not about live streaming. Adam?
On that, also make sure you don't just simply go with the majority. Try to actually build consensus and get the minority to at least kind of give some level of buy-in to it.
Sure, absolutely.
Because if you just go, well, church voted and we decided to go this way,
Right.
you're gonna have the 30% that didn't disagree, bad-mouthing it every chance they get.
Absolutely.
So you have to get them to have consensus.
And I would say to that, Adam, too, let's just run scenario. The church is doing this already, or the church has decided to do it. Celebrate it. You celebrate what you believe in, right? That's a never-changing truth. So, if the kids at Rehoboth went off to camp this summer, and 8 of them got saved, what would be the news the next Sunday in church?
Salvation.
Praise the Lord, kids got saved at camp. Somebody want to get up and testify to that, right? We'd have, the youth would probably run the church service and tell them the story to testify what God did. Okay? Now, if you've decided to do the live stream, whether you call it this or not, you've started another service, reaching a different group of people. And if you have tools in place for people to minister, life change will happen. It may be in a conversation thread. Maybe somebody comes to know Jesus. Maybe a prayer need is listed. If the church has bought in to this mission, that prayer request will end up on that prayer sheet that's distributed in the Wednesday night prayer meeting. Because the church will see this as a mission and ministry because they've bought into it. Rather than, well, that's just something the kids are over there doing. Does that make sense?